Good evening. We are going to call to order the school board meeting for March 8, 2022. As this meeting commences, please be advised it is unlawful for any person to knowingly disrupt or interfere with the administration or function of the school board meeting or activity on school board property. It is the expectation that every person present or who enters the assembly will conduct themselves with civility, courtesy, and restraint. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the district policies and procedures as they relate to order and decorum. Disruptive behavior and actions are counterproductive to the advancement of pertinent district business. Therefore, each individual is warned that failure to conduct oneself with civility and propriety may result in removal. We thank you in advance for everyone's adherence and cooperation. And tonight, Ms. Sanchez.
Good evening. Today, of course, is International Women's Day, and in honor and celebrating all the wonderful women out there and all of my fabulous women that I work with day in and day out, thank you. And today, as we celebrate the women around the world, ladies who dared to dream big ever since they were little girls, for the diversity and the talents that lie within our hearts, for the courage and determination that prevents us from falling apart. We can raise families, build businesses, and be proud for all that we have achieved. Where once over, visions of that scale could never have been believed. Ladies, stand up and be counted, smile at how far we have come, and cherish every single day as daughters, wives, companions, and moms. Don't let anybody tell you that there are set paths for you to follow. As a little girl with a passion is an inspiring woman of tomorrow. So celebrate all the women and acknowledge the great things to do. And tell a lady close to your heart just how much they mean to you. And in honor of International Women's Day, thank you to all of you. Please stand for the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Sanchez. Let the record reflect that all members of the school board, superintendent, board clerk, and board attorney are present. Tonight's roll call order will be Member Calderon, Vice Chair Sanchez, Member Kraus, Member Allman, and then myself. Ms. Marimas, do we have any acknowledgements? And Superintendent, do we have any agenda modifications?
No modifications. Our addendum for a good cause is marked on our electronic agenda by a green flag named addendum item, but the two modifications are the addition of the personnel rec and the salary schedule that was included.
Thank you. Agenda modifications, Member Calderon.
None, thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Sanchez.
No modifications, thank you.
Member Kraus.
No modifications.
Member Almond.
No modifications, Madam Chair.
I have no modifications as well. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda outline?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say aye. Motion carries. We have presentations, Superintendent.
Yes, we have our Veteran of the Month, Mr. Blazewood.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Blazewoods. I am the principal at Lake Brantley High School, and it is my pleasure to introduce our Seminole County Public Schools Veteran of the Month, Master Sergeant Jason Jesse. After graduating from University High School in Orlando, where he was a state champion wrestler, Jason attended college in South Dakota on an athletic scholarship. On April 19th of 2000, he decided to enlist in the United States Air Force as a firefighter, retiring and returning to the Central Florida area more than 20 years later. During his time in the Air Force, he was stationed in North Carolina, Japan, and California. In addition, he was deployed to the Middle East on 6 occasions to Kuwait, the UAE, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. Throughout his 20-year military career, he earned the Meritorious Service Medal, Air Force Commendation Medal with Combat Device, Air Force Achievement Medal, and the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, among others. Though busy, he was also able to obtain his master's degree in Emergency Services Management. Jason has been married to his wife, Elisha, for 9 years and has 3 children, Savannah, Jake, and Chesney, all who attend school here in Seminole County. Congratulations and thank you, Master Sergeant Jesse, for your service to our country.
Good evening, school board members and Superintendent Beeman. It is with great excitement that I introduce our newest assistant principal at Jackson Heights Middle School, Mr. Andrew Porter. Originally from Southwest Florida, Mr. Porter moved to Central Florida to finish his bachelor's degree in fine arts. During this time, he met his wonderful wife, Channing, and discovered his passion for learning and education at UCF. Mr. Porter started his career in Lake County as an art teacher in 2012. He was lucky to be offered a position at Jackson Heights Middle School in 2015, where he continued his teaching career. In 2019, Mr. Porter graduated from Stetson University with his master's degree in educational leadership and continued his support of student learning and success as the dean at Jackson Heights. Mr. Porter is very excited and humbled to have the opportunity to continue supporting his principal, the teachers, and students in his new role as assistant principal. Joining him this evening is his wife, Channing Porter, and his son, Finn Porter, and members of the Jackson Heights Middle School.
Good evening, school board members and Ms. Beeman, and happy birthday, Jill. So just wanted to start off this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about our computer science initiative in Seminole County, and I really am just honored to kind of get to sit next to these people who have done some amazing kind of forethought as to what the next iteration of computer science in Seminole County looks like. This board, way before anybody thought it was cool, decided that doing computer science in K-12 was an important aspect of our students' education. And so we are continuing that initiative with our next iteration. We know that we had Computer Science 2020. If we were to stick with that, we would know that we would always be behind the times at this point. And so we are so excited to share with you some thoughts that we have about computational thinking and how that's going to lead to problem solving and how we're going to support our kids through that process. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Faith Whittingham, who is one of our facilitators in ePathways.
Thank you. As we say goodbye to Computer Science 2020, I have the pleasure of introducing for the first time publicly the logo for computer science going forward in Seminole County, Computer Science Integrated. And this represents a change from Computer Science 2020, which focused on our elementary students. Our hope is that we would roll out an entire continuum in computer science from kindergarten through 12th grade to increase the diversity and the number of students who are actually participating in computer science in the high school level. The other focus for Computer Science Integrated is, rather than having the 10 hours that we had isolated, is to look at developing transferable skills for our students. So not only will students be learning the computational thinking skills, which really are just structured problem-solving skills, we're hoping that as they develop those skills with the computer science activities, that they would transfer those skills to other content areas and become better problem solvers in general. And so I have a quick example that I'll use here. The idea of algorithmic thinking, very core to computational thinking or computer science thinking. An algorithm is just basically a logical step-by-step process for solving a problem. So very simple, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If you do the steps out of sequence or not all the steps, you don't end up with what you expect. And so as we're teaching our students algorithmic thinking in our computer science, we're also teaching them about sequencing, which is a skill that they need. And then in our ELA area, they're actually working on sequencing in terms of storytelling and determining the events and the sequence of events. So as we're teaching them computer science and algorithmic thinking, we're really working on their future-ready problem-solving skills overall, right? And I won't go into the other examples, but you get the idea. Our hope is to find other areas in the other content areas where what we're teaching in computer science is really relevant. We have had the privilege of working with a system developed by Dr. Beers at Tufts University. She is a specialist in both computer science and in early childhood development. And she has an institute. Actually, she's done training all over the world. The government of Singapore hired her to do training for their computer science teachers. And she developed this really interesting integration of computer science and ELA. And so she starts with, and I'm the only person with manipulatives today, but anyway, so she uses the idea of a story, and she says that basically computer science is our new literacies. And in the same way that a story has a beginning and an end, a computer science program has a beginning and the end. And so I love that she uses blocks, right? Because who sees blocks anymore? But in the same way that a story has events and there's sequencing in that events, a computer science program has events and a sequence of events. And so we're using the story in a book to actually teach the idea of computer science. And so I have in my hand a program. And our students are working, what we did last year was there was a grant from the state, and we decided to take a portion of those funds to actually give our teachers kind of a focus group opportunity. And so one Kibo went into this little robot here. I know it doesn't look much like a robot, but to kindergartner, it's very cool. And one robot went into each of our schools, kindergarten and first grade. And we asked them just to take some pictures to share with us what the experience was for students as they experienced this really different way of doing computer science. It's developmentally appropriate, it's screen-free, there's no tablet, there's no PC. All they're doing is working collaboratively to solve a problem. And so some of the pictures, I'll start with the young lady who's working by herself. So there's students working independently and debugging by themselves. There's students working in partners to actually work out the problem without the robot to actually know what's going on. And then finally, what I love is that in addition to the blocks, she also has cards. So this really facilitates whole group participation in computer science, where students can work together to do something. For example, it could be a challenge like make your robot dance the hokey pokey. Well, the hokey pokey is an algorithm, right? And so students can work out the algorithm with the cards without the robot, and then they do debugging as they actually use the robot. And so that shows one set of the classrooms, and then actually this is an example of a whole group And we did the same example with the teachers. It was so much fun because we asked them to do a simple program, and they tried to make the most complex program that they could, because the robot changes light color, and it dances, and it wiggles, and it shakes, and it makes noises, and when you clap your hands, and it's like almost the beginning of artificial intelligence, kind of, which is what I love, because so often we teach the software part of programming, but we don't introduce the hardware. And sensors are becoming such an essential part of computer science. And so this is a whole group of students who had to work out something, put together a program, and all that happens at the end is one student gets to be the robot, and it scans just like you would in the supermarket. It just scans the code, and then the robot performs the program in sequence. I have one more picture. Right. So I just wanted you to see this. Here's the honor that we have. Dr. Barris has agreed to work with us through the computer science grant for this year. She's going to be offering consulting to integrate our best standards into her curriculum for computer science, which is an integrated ELA curriculum. But she also focuses on future-ready skills. She also focuses on how computer science actually helps to build people. And we're really excited about that part of the computer science. She also will be, she and her team will also be providing professional development for our kindergarten, first, and second grade teachers. What we're hoping is, according to Dr. Beers, by fourth grade, they really are starting to make choices. What we're hoping is to build a solid foundation for computer science that would integrate as we go through middle school and high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. I think we have a couple more pictures, and then we get to middle school. So the beauty of this partnership is I'm an ELA teacher by trade. I am not a computer scientist, or I didn't think I was until I met Faith. And when she started to tell me some of the computational skills, I'm like, that's like the writing process. Wait a minute, that's sequencing. And so this partnership really has been beautiful in understanding both I am a computer scientist, and I never would have pegged myself as one. So I'm very proud of that. And that is what we are trying to do now, K-12, is you don't have to be sitting behind a computer to be a computer scientist. You could be in our culinary program, and you're having to debug. Something didn't go right with your cookies. Your bread didn't rise. That's computational thinking. You are a computer scientist. And so in middle school, we need to be ready to receive these learners, and we need to be ready to receive these skills. So you can see over the next several years, we're going to work to imagine our middle school courses to integrate this computer science thinking through a career exploration lens. I'm going to use some anecdotal here. I have a 7th grader. My daughter Savannah is sold on, designing her own clothing line. I mean, every day I come home and she has sketches of this. And so how beautiful for her to be in a course where she could be creating products for this clothing line. She could be doing Excel spreadsheets of clothing costs. She could be doing a PowerPoint of a pitch of her business to an investor. So that is our goal, is to really create some personalization for the career plan, all while integrating those computer science thinking skills. Did she know off the top of her head that she wanted to be a clothing designer? No, she'd have to go through some debugging to say these are the advantages and disadvantages of this, and also through some sequencing. What am I going to have to do? What does my schooling look like to get to this? So we're using those computer science integrated skills through the lens of a career exploration, all while personalizing that approach for our students. We recognize that AP Computer Science principles, a lot of our 9th graders take it. And so an 8th grade or a 3rd course would really ready our students for that course. Faith mentioned AI. We've just found out from the DOE that an AI computer science framework is on the horizon with some middle school programming. We need to be ready to receive these learners and to get them ready for what's next. And so you can see our timeline there. We're going to be working with middle school leaders, teachers, and probably most importantly, students, to hear their voice as we work to conceptualize and develop these courses. AP Computer Science Principles, as you know, was developed a few years ago to really create engaging, computer science coursework for students like me, who maybe didn't view myself as a computer scientist. I always loved walking into our AP computer science principals in the high school and see the kids like doing recordings and doing audio, and you're like, that's computer science. So computer science principles, that was why College Board developed this course, was to make an engaging and accessible framework and to diversify our computer science enrollment. And so if we look at a true K-12 e-pathway for computer science, we've got to get those 8th graders ready for computer science principles and really work to continue enrollment in our AP computer science principles and/or computer science class. So this is where we sit now. We'd like to consider this the baseline, because when we start talking about these K-2 students and these elementary school students, we better be ready for them, because they're going to know algorithmic thinking, which, as you can see, if you look at the AP Computer Science course description, that's covered. They're going to know about the design process, covered. They're going to know how to debug. That will be covered. So we need to be ready for these students and to ensure that we are providing a true continuum of learning in computer science. We obviously can't do that without some teacher training and that design thinking and bringing in our stakeholders, our parents, our teachers, our students, to really make this make sense for everyone. And you can see some ideas that we have for the next couple, iterations of professional development for our teachers and for our leaders.
And so with that, we did what good teachers do. We've started with the end in mind. AP Computer Science Principles is kind of that goal, or AP Comp Sci A. Those are the goals. And so what do we need to back map all the way to kindergarten to make sure that we're building the right building blocks, and also making it so that career exploration and those future-ready skills are not something that kind of gets done separately, but all of those things now get kind of married together. The computer science curriculum that was written initially through all of this has served us well. It has, the teachers that have worked on this, that have reworked on this, that have refined this, their work is not lost. It will just be imagined differently in certain spots, and in some ways it may appear exactly as it has if we've gotten that to a point of refinement where it needed to be. But we're just excited to kind of take that next step and move on to computer science integrated, as we give all of our students the opportunity to not only see how an early start in computer science can change their course trajectory, but can also change the trajectory of their exploration of careers, college, or the military, depending on what their area of interest is.
Any questions?
The students are incredibly lucky. These sound like things that we took in high school, and early college. So kudos, well done.
This is really fun work.
It is really fun work.
I agree. It's just amazing. And just to think that back in the day, understanding computer and how they can do everything now and debug and what they do, we have to keep up with them. And I'm like you, I was an ELA teacher, but thinking about how you interact with Faith and the whole program and how it's all evolved is just absolutely amazing. And I loved your analogy of how you explained everything. It's just wonderful. All of y'all, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, board members.
Chairman, we have just
We
one
have
more
one more,
portion.
sorry.
Just one more
Yes.
portion, yes.
But wait, that's right.
Board members and Ms. Beeman, this is a BOGO Focus on Student Achievement presentation. We're excited to talk with you about a similar revisioning of another concept that has been with us for a number of years. And just as the computer science 2020 work started and has been sustained, and now we have this exciting course forward for computer science, we also have to start talking about the instructional shifts that will be happening in our district over the next 12 months, and how we need to pivot away from some of the things we've done in the past, and again look at a new direction. So we're going to talk tonight about our upcoming plan for teacher professional development this summer. and we're very excited about a new concept. And so just as a reminder, the 22-23 school year mark a significant instructional shift for all classroom teachers K-12 as we prepare to implement the BEST standards, the benchmarks for excellent student thinking. Our K-2 classroom teachers have already begun this shift, implementing standards in ELA this year, and then next year, of course, we move K-12 in ELA and mathematics. So a very significant move forward. With that also comes new textbooks in K-12 ELA and K-12 math, along with Spanish, French, and some other languages that we teach here in SCPS. We also know that we'll be getting a new assessment system. DOE has branded that as FAST, Florida's Assessment of Student Thinking, and we're awaiting the outcome of legislation so that we know at least the broad outlines of what the assessment system will look like next year. And then, of course, we'll await rulemaking for all of the specific details. And finally, our principals, our teachers, our families are continuing to deal with the educational impacts of COVID-19. And we know that whether you think of that as mitigating learning loss, or whether you think of it as accelerating learning, regardless of which viewpoint you have, there is still work to be done. And we know that that work will continue well into next year. So with all of that, and keeping in mind that our tremendous classroom teachers are working on 10-month contracts with very little time for planning, we knew that we needed to do something to make sure that this transition, standards, materials, curriculum, course frameworks, we've got to give them more time to make that shift happen. And so with our superintendent's approval, we are reworking our traditional approach to summer professional development. We are saying farewell to the Power of You conference that has been in our district for several years, that allowed a lot of choice in a variety of topic areas, and instead we're moving to a more focused educator conference that we have branded the best summer ever, and we're excited to be able to welcome our teachers back early this year, July 26th through the 29th, and then Monday, August 1st, and Ms. Beeman sent the invitation to all teacher-based employees earlier, actually a week ago today, March 1st, to let them know to save these dates on their calendar. And so we're excited to give our teachers some additional time to learn their new materials, to look deeply at the standards, and really to interact with each other in their professional learning communities, and then reaching out both across school levels and across grade levels. So there'll be horizontal and vertical articulation opportunities built in. And Mr. Jensen and I strongly believe that providing this additional time will give our district, our students, a jump on all of this work so that we can have a very successful school year next year. And in a moment, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Jensen, and he'll just give you a highlight of the logistics that are involved. This will easily be our most logistically complex educator conference that we've held. It will be multi-site, and again, we will have something for every type of teacher, not just ELA and math. We want every educator in this district to be familiar with the English language arts expectations and the standards, and also the mathematical thinking and reasoning standards, because in all disciplines we should be connecting back to reading and math. And so we're excited to have the opportunity for all of our educators to be invested in those topics. And board members, obviously this is coming at some additional expense, and I want to thank each of you for supporting this initiative. This is really an unprecedented professional development investment. instructional workforce, and we're excited to move forward and get these shifts rolled out to our teachers. So again, Mr. Jensen's going to walk you through some highlights of our summer conference.
So like Dr. Weissong said, board members, this is an initial overview. More information will be shared with our teachers and with our staff after spring break and throughout the entire spring semester leading into summer. But ultimately, the Best Summer Ever provides an opportunity for all Seminole County teachers to engage 5 days of extremely high quality professional development and professional practice to prepare themselves to accelerate learning for all students using their new best aligned instructional materials and using their new instructional frameworks. So we're really, really excited in the Department of Teaching and Learning at the opportunity this presents us as a district. Accelerate learning for students using some of this ESSER funding to mitigate that learning loss and ensure that our teachers have an incredibly successful start to the school year, feeling prepared to meet the challenges of their I think one of the pieces of this conference that I'm most excited about is that unlike the Power of You in past, like Dr. Weissong referenced, where teachers would sign up for individual sessions, very much kind of like a build your own schedule style of conference, where teachers would pick different topics based on their needs at that moment. Because we kind of have this unified instructional need at this moment in history, we have the opportunity to build these structured programs of learning for all teachers that allow them to go through this professional development experience together as a professional learning community with like teachers from their school and from the district. And so these won't just be sit and get sessions. These are going to be sessions where they're collaboratively planning with each other, because we don't want teachers to just exit this experience with knowledge, which we definitely want, but we also want them to end this week with a plan and feeling prepared to use all of these materials and to start school the week after pre-plan. So we're really, really excited. You can see here that our topics are going to include, obviously, our best standards, familiarizing our teachers with those in all content areas and across all roles, but also instructional materials, the instructional frameworks which we're developing, strategies and tools for mitigating learning loss, and there's going to be programming, again, for all teachers regardless of the role they're in. So we're really going to customize it so that teachers feel like all the information that they receive grounded in the best standards is applicable to the work they're going to start the year doing with students. Very, very important to us. Like I said, there's going to be sessions for all subject areas, all grade levels, and all professional roles for teacher-based positions. We're hoping everyone comes together and really just fills our schools with the excitement of learning and preparing for a new school year with all of the new cool stuff we're going to have to use to work with students for the 22-23 school year. Dr. Weissong already went over many of the reasons why this is a total reset from the Power of You, but we're excited to say that all teacher-based employees are guaranteed a spot here. So there's no need to stay up late registering for sessions or trying to beat someone out for a session. If you want to participate, there is a slot reserved with you, with your peers, to engage in this professional learning experience. We're really excited. But again, this presents enormous logistical challenges for a district our size, and with the number of teachers we have in the district, to ensure that everyone has access to a really high quality week of professional. As I said, we're going to be releasing more information to our teachers after spring break. Teachers are going to be letting us know about their interest in participating, which we believe will be very high, as well as receiving information about all of the logistics for the events, materials, scheduling, et cetera. And we really just need to, like Dr. Weissong did, thank you for your support of teachers, for investing in their professional development and ensuring that, along with the new instructional materials that they'll be having, the new curriculum, and all of the tools and opportunities we're giving them, we're also giving them the time and networking to those materials and tools successfully to start next school year. So thank you again, and
Bravo. While I see the value of keeping like teachers on the campus to start in their PLCs for the year, are there going to be opportunities perhaps during that week at all for any of the singletons, like per school, that could come together? I know in visiting all the classrooms, like an AP physics teacher at Sci-High says, God, I'd love to meet another AP physics teacher and work through this situation. Is that going to be offered?
Absolutely. So as you know, we have some teachers who have a kind of a cohort of peers who teach the similar subject on their own campus, but then we also have, either due to like subject specialization or due to some of our smaller campuses, we have teachers who are singletons or teachers who don't have a number of peers on the same campus teaching a similar subject to them. And so one of our intentions with this programming is going to be to make sure we craft pathways for those teachers, almost like we do with some of our district provided. We do kind of WebEx-based professional learning communities for some of those teachers, some of our AP teachers, et cetera. We're going to be offering a face-to-face version of that throughout the week as well, to where they will get to do learning together and build that professional network, even if it spans across schools.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Will our staff be paid to attend this training?
Absolutely. Teachers will be paid the full week of work for attending this training.
I think it's a fabulous way to start the year. I'm really excited for them. Thank you.
I know, I love it. I love the title, Best Summer Ever, and especially getting back to everything after, everything that's happened in the past couple of years or longer. It's going to be awesome. As instructional materials, when do we expect those to come in?
So there are two parts to the instructional materials project. The first is the surplusing of materials that are no longer aligned to the new best standards. So that process is actually already underway in terms of identifying things that aren't going to be used the rest of this year that can go ahead and be boxed up. So our goal will be to, some schools will do some late spring surplusing, but there'll also be quite a bit going on the first 2 weeks in June, ideally. And then our hope is to have materials begin arriving right after that. And certainly, we want everything in place prior to July 26th. Having said that, we know that there are a number of supply chain challenges right now, and there's also an art to not having things delivered too soon, right? We don't want all of these pallets showing up while we still have students on campus. So this is a little bit of an exercise in timing and working with suppliers and whatnot to be sure we get all of this timed correctly.
Awesome. Wonderful job. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, board members, any items for discussion? Member Calderon?
Not for me. Thank you. I'll do my committee reports later.
Vice Chair Sanchez?
None for me, thank you.
Member Kraus?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Member Almond?
None for me, thank you.
None for me as well. So we will go into public comment. Ms. Vice Chair Sanchez, if you'd read the statement, please.
Sure. The purpose of the public participation segment of the board meeting is to allow the public to address matters with the board's jurisdiction and not for resolving individual grievances or disputes. Public comments related to education, the board agenda, and the district are welcome and encouraged. To maintain orderly conduct, the public comment segment of the meeting may not be used as an open forum to discuss matters unrelated to education, to support or oppose candidates for office, including presentation of political and/or campaign issues, announcing candidacy or campaigning, or to engage in commercial speech attempting to sell a service or product to the board or to the public. Nor is it a forum to address matters involving disciplinary actions of any kind, pending claims, complaints, or litigation against the district or district personnel. Also, public comment is not a forum to engage in personal attacks against the school system, employees, or board members. Statements made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. One designated group representative speaking on a proposition before the board will have a maximum of 6 minutes. No speaker may yield his or her time to any other person. Substitutions of speakers will not be allowed except in exceptional circumstances as determined by the presiding officer. Speakers shall direct their comments only to the board and may not address the audience or other speakers. This policy does not prohibit the board from maintaining orderly conduct or proper decorum in a public meeting. Thank you.
And just a reminder, if you could please make sure that your phones are on silent. We will start with Denise Hernandez, Kathy Savage, and Deborah Donahue.
Good evening. My name is Denise Hernandez. I am a parent and resident of Winter Springs, and I currently have 3 children enrolled in Winter Springs, in Seminole County schools, one at Winter Springs High School, another in Indian Trails Middle School, and another in Keith Elementary. So I am here representing about 25 parents of Indian Trails Middle School. We have been in talks with administration and leadership with some concerns we have regarding communication from the school with parents, student safety, and discipline or the lack of discipline that's happening at Indian Trails. So we're in the process of having those discussions with leadership. However, to better understand some of the barriers that our leadership may be facing, I have a couple of questions that I'd like to address with the board. And so our first concern is teacher turnover. And so our group of parents want to know, what is the school district doing to retain and recruit quality teachers, as many students are going without teachers in classrooms and instruction, especially at Indian Trails. From our understanding, Indian Trails has a large teacher turnover, and that is due to perhaps some communication or some discipline issues. Communication is our second concern. It happens that when parents are trying to call the school or even district offices, phones are not being answered, or there is no communication returned. So what is being done to address the lack of communication from parents, or to parents, from the district, especially when they call district offices? And so that was one concern, one major concern amongst this group of parents. And lastly, our biggest concern, which ties into everything else that we have concerns with at Indian Trails, is the discipline policy. It seems that the discipline policy is influenced by district protocols. What are those protocols for serious or repeated offenses? How are teachers and staff being supported? And we keep hearing that our hands are tied. We can't do this because the hands are tied, and as a result, our teachers are having to suffer abusive behavior from students, destructive behavior from students in their classroom. And so we're trying to understand what the protocols are, because we keep passing the bucket. When we ask our school leadership, there is no one who can explain the protocols for discipline. And so those are our 3 concerns that I would like to bring to the board's attention. And moving forward, because we hope that we will be able to gather some, information that we can take back to help work with administration. But at this point, a large group of parents are very unsatisfied with what is happening at Indian Trails and with the lack of support for teachers and staff there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Savage, and a teacher at Oviedo High School for 28 years. The attacks coming from all states in all directions, censoring free speech in an educational setting, especially speech that relates to communities that are already feeling ostracized, make it more important now than ever to include these minority groups in our diversity education. Bills like the anti-woke and Don't Say Gay bill send strong messages to youth already at higher risk of suicide than any other group, that they should be ashamed of who they are, whether they are Black or trans. In addition, these bills are insulting and condescending to the teaching profession, a profession that already feels overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, and is struggling to retain with trained teachers. These bills imply that teachers are not capable of knowing what is age appropriate and what is not, and that we must have our curriculum so strictly predefined that we might as well be robots. As a biotech teacher, several of our lessons and several of our labs involve HIV. Do we now omit these lessons? We all know these bills are nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to further dismantle public education, and the long-term consequences will be devastating. As a community, and I include the school board in this, we must stand up against misguided, racist, and homophobic theater from people that don't trust their child's teacher, even though they have probably never had a single conversation with any of them. If we don't stand up and fight together this every legal way we know how, we will lose more teachers to other professions where they are respected. But worse, we will lose more of our precious students to suicide so that these parents can feel more comfortable. We need more than good integrated education. We need inclusive education, and we must work hard to ensure all minority groups see role models that look and act like them. Our equity committee is more important now than ever. Otherwise, our future, their future, looks very bleak indeed.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. As you may be aware, the College Board issued an alarming statement about censorship about 4 days ago. In the statement, it clearly warns that they can and they will remove AP designation from classes that fail to teach required topics. That's concerning because schools could lose specific AP coursework. Part of the school grade in Florida for high schools is made up of a component called college and career readiness. It comes from AP coursework. It doesn't just hurt our schools, it hurts our kids. Our kids rely on AP coursework to show they're taking the most rigorous courses possible to get into colleges. Selected colleges look at that as a criteria to admit our kids. They look at that for merit-based scholarships. And we're taking that away from kids when we start to censor. AP issued a really strong statement over the weekend. They're looking at courses to make sure that they're taught with that criteria. We can't start restricting materials. We can't start restricting the books that they're reading. We can't censor discussions in those classes. So I'm asking you as a school board to take a stance on that. AP courses are courses that students are able to opt into. We need to have a strong policy on that in order for that to continue. Part of the prestige of living in Seminole County are A-rated schools. AP coursework matters. IB coursework, the IB governing board has similar standards. They haven't issued a standard or a statement yet. I'm concerned. My child benefited from the International Baccalaureate program. She was a full ride based on merit. I would hate to see other students not have that available to them. Thank you.
Ed Meeson, followed by Jenny Decosta, followed by J.J. Holmes.
Ed Meeson, Winter Park. This evening, I'd like to talk about Step Up for Students. Step Up for Students is a private scholarship funding organization based out of Jacksonville, Florida, to administer the Florida tax credit vouchers, now euphemistically called scholarships. These vouchers are funded from state education budget, thus siphoning public school funds to private, sometimes for-profit, mostly religious schools. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-religion, but I am a constitutionalist and believe in the separation of church and state. But it gets worse. There are no teaching standards or curriculum guides or student testing criterion, not even attendance requirements for these voucher schools. But it gets worse. The program started with vouchers of low-income students, but the definition of low income has risen every year and now includes families that earn up to 375% of poverty. That can exceed $100,000. But it gets worse. Corporations are making contributions to Step Up and receive dollar-for-dollar tax credits. Much of Step Up's activity is lobbying the legislature for more money. In effect, the taxpayers of Florida are subsidizing corporate lobbyists to lobby for taking more money out of public education. But it gets worse. The current regime is so proud of this corporate self-dealing that our legislature now allows these corporate donations to be hidden from the public. But it gets worse. Not only are 66% of the 1,800 private schools religiously affiliated, violating the separation of church and state, the program results in more racial segregation of our schools. Separate is not equal. But it gets worse. Originally, the vouchers were help to help impoverished students. Not only has this morphed into an upper middle class eligibility, the program has grown to include special needs students, bullied students, low performing school attendees, low reading scores. All of this with little enforcement of the loose qualifications and rules set up by, you guessed it, Step Up for Students. All this sounds great on the surface. After all, who doesn't want to see a special needs student get help? However, the program is not monitored other than a cursory audit. But it gets worse. The Florida Department of Education has outsourced the auditing function of this voucher program. Who they outsourced it to? Step Up for Students. So they set the loose standards and they audit their own loose standards. In other words, a self-auditing. I hope this board does everything in its power to oppose these egregious assaults on our public education and disservice to every taxpayer. I'd like to leave you with a couple of quotes. If you are neutral in a situation of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Desmond Tutu. I say change is inevitable, so it is up to us to make it for the better. Thank you.
Jenny Decosta.
Good evening, school board and superintendent. My name is Jenny Decosta. I am a parent of a 4th grader and 7th grader here in Seminole County Public Schools. I have also served as a classroom teacher and curriculum specialist and literacy coach in one of our neighboring districts for almost 20 years. And I am here tonight to advocate for teachers, recognizing the incredible work that they do each and every day to help our kids feel safe and successful and valued and accepted. Our family has been a member of Seminole County Public Schools family for nearly 15 years now. Through these years, we have developed deep connections with some amazing teachers. These connections have supported my children in times of need. They have loved my kids in times of sadness. They have celebrated my kids during times of success. From attending seemingly unimportant YMCA soccer games on a Saturday to loving my kids on a loss of a loved one, to watching them graduate and head on to FSU to celebrate my oldest and beyond. The connections that they have developed through the years did not emerge, however, by accident. They developed because our teachers took the time to nurture my kids, to love my kids, to connect with my children, and to engage in collaborative dialogue with me and my husband. Today, our schools are struggling, as you've heard here tonight. They're struggling to build community. They're struggling to meet the needs of our kids, their behavioral and emotional needs. They struggle to simply sometimes find enough personnel to find and create a safe environment. I'm here tonight to ask you to repurpose your work to consider students' social and emotional health. As you focus on this new instructional response, I'm encouraging you to not forget don't leave behind the kids that need your support with their social and emotional health. Teachers need this as well. It's one thing to dive into new standards and learn new curriculum. And it's a very different thing to do that with a group of kids that are suffering emotionally, that need the extra support. And the head just doesn't come to school. The heart comes too. Your kids walk into those buildings every day with their heart. When you go home, I ask my kids every day for several years, what did you do today? What happened today to make you feel valued or seen or loved or cared for or accepted? And every response began with, "When my teacher." When my teacher helped me organize my notebook, when my teacher held my hand at the fire drill, when my teacher yelled across the hallway at me with a smile on her face. Those are the moments kids take with them. So let's put those moments at the top of the list when we think of our priorities. Thank you.
JJ Holmes, followed by Allison Holmes, followed by Julia Squateri.
All right, let's see if it works. Hang on. I'm just going to move. Okay. Good. Is it on there? Yeah. Okay.
Superintendent Beeman, members of the school board, my name is J.J. Holmes. I am a proud ally of the LGBTQ community, and I strongly oppose the Republicans' hateful Don't Say Gay bill. 2 weeks ago, I was a messenger in Tallahassee, and I had an amazing time. But the Don't Say Gay bill means I might not be able to talk about it when I go back to school. You see, the representative who sponsored me is Carlos Guillermo Smith, and he's openly gay. Gay. He's also one of the kindest, most honorable people I've ever had the privilege to meet. The Don't Say Gay bill goes way beyond third graders. It says students in any grade cannot mention sexual orientation or gender identity unless it's, quote, age appropriate or developmentally appropriate, unquote. But what benchmark is going to be used to decide what's appropriate? The bill doesn't say. So you know he'll be judging if it's appropriate for me to talk about Rep. Smith. You all remember the bigoted Seminole County Republican candidate who came here last year and told you guys there's a, quote, gay agenda in our county. That's someone who's now being empowered to decide if another human being is appropriate. Members of the school board, if you tell our LGBTQ students and families they're not welcome in Seminole County schools, then you won't be welcome to sit on our school board anymore. Florida is in a very bleak place, but the darkest hour is always just before the dawn. And never, ever forget. Love trumps hate.
Alton Holmes. I want to say first that I fully support everything JJ's just said about the hateful Don't Say Gay bill. Tonight, I want to take this opportunity to express my concern about the treatment of ESE students in Seminole County. And from what I hear at these meetings, there's a lot of disgruntled ESE parents in the district. I'm still unclear after all these months why JJ's work isn't being adapted, and I can't get a straight answer. You say it falls under the World Wide Web accessibility guidelines. Okay. And you say the web content meets all accessibility requirements. Great. That means it must be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. But it's none of those things for JJ. And just to be clear, virtual school was brought up as an option by the district, not me. We're supposed to be an IEP team, all of us together, one team. Except that's not how it works in Seminole County. It's you versus us. In meetings, when I ask a question, your ESE administrator constantly says, "This isn't a court of law, Mrs. Holmes." Now, you may be thinking, what constitutional conundrum are you asking this poor administrator? The question I'm asking her to please just answer is a straightforward yes or no to what I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Years ago, I started a petition about the issues JJ was having in the district, and I was inundated with messages from parents of ESE students in Seminole County. All but one of the parents who contacted me had removed their child from the district and used the McKay Scholarship. All but one. And I know from first-hand experience why they did that. With JJ, you've done things like stopping all ESE support for almost 3 months without telling me, because apparently staff were busy preparing for what was then the FCAT. Huge violation. Here's another one. In 3rd grade, a staff member was yanking JJ's head. JJ didn't tell me straight away because he thought he'd be in trouble for me. Eventually, she hurt him so much he did tell me. Weeks she was doing this to him. Now, I will say, the minute I told the assistant principal, he investigated, spoke to witnesses, and she was fired. But imagine if JJ were like some of the ESE students and totally unable to communicate. Right now, JJ is getting emails several times a day to join a WebEx for his virtual classes, but I believe he can't join independently. But the district says they disagree with me. And so it seems you believe he can operate the laptop. So I'll be back in April to let you know if this was in fact true. It's not.
Julia Squitieri, followed by Jasmine Cower, followed by Celine Wasterberg. Julia Squitieri.
Hello, my name is Julia Squitieri, and I am a senior at Haggerty High School. Today I address this school board to raise concerns about gender discrimination in sections 3B1, 3A2, 3B2, and 4B of SCPS's dress code policy. These sections almost exclusively list out items of clothing found in the women's section of a clothing store, or include provisions that often target feminine students when enforced. I've met students who have been called hookers. I've met students who have missed hours of class. I've met students who have cried in bathrooms. I've met students who have been humiliated in front of their peers, all while being dress coded. So to those who oppose reform of the dress code, I must ask, what about their bodies is more important than their learning time? Archaic, patriarchal ideas of what a student should wear has no place in schools. Dress coding is not a trivial issue. There are people's livelihoods and access to education on the line. Education that is supposed to be equitable under Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1973, the Florida Educational Equity Act, and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Title IX is a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in federally funded schools. As a Title IX researcher working with the ACLU, I am concerned about our dress code. In August 2021, Peltier versus Charter Day School, decided by an appeals court in the Fourth Circuit, affirmed that Title IX applies to school dress code policies. As such, any provision of the dress code that causes a feminine student to miss class time disproportionate to that of her masculine peers may be a provision straining compliance with Title IX. I bring forth these concerns on the basis of my right and the right of every student to an equitable education. Dress coding that disproportionately targets feminine students is not just inequitable in the eyes of Title IX, but in the eyes of the very notion of equal education. Performing sections 3B1, 3A2, 3B2, and 4B of the dress code is not just about removing liability in the face of judicial decisions increasingly poised against gender dress codes. It is about justice for every student who has been told that their body is of greater concern than that of their education. It is about making sure that the students who walk through the halls of their schools next school year do not have their learning time stolen because of sexist and paternalistic provisions of the dress code. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Carr, and I'm a senior at Haggerty High School. Today, I, along with several other students from across the district, bring forth concerns of students based on gender discriminatory enforcement of the current dress code policy. We are grateful for the previous removal of the term cleavage, but we cannot ignore continued issues within Seminole County's public schools dress code that are harmful to our students. Our goal in speaking today is to address the district leadership before us so that we share our experiences and perspectives as students. As a student, there is little to nothing more stressful and intimidating than looking down at your shirt on the way to school and wondering if the difference of even 1 inch of stomach, of shoulder, of chest will be deemed inappropriate upon arrival to school. We go to school to learn. We do not go to school to have someone look at our bodies up and down to determine if our bodies are too distracting. According to Professor Meredith Johnson Harbach from the University of Richmond Lab Review, dress codes and their enforcements can impose sexuality on girls, even when they do not perceive themselves in sexual terms. Gender studies scholars report that dress codes generally have negative ramifications for women, sending a message that exposing the female body is bad. So let us ask the question today: does an exposed chest, tube tops, or halter tops create an unsafe learning environment? Do they promote equity within the classroom? The reality is quite the opposite. The reality is that when feminine students come to school, when they are looked up and down, when they are told to leave class because their shoulders or stomach is showing, and their masculine counterparts remain in class, the dress code is promoting inequality. As a student, I asked this school board and district leadership to stop this cycle. Please stop pulling a girl out of math class because her shoulder strap was too thin. Please stop pulling a girl inside during her history exam to tell her that her stomach is showing. Please stop telling these students that covering up is more important than learning. There is nothing more important than a student's ability to learn in an equitable environment. Stopping this cycle begins with removing sections of this policy that prohibit items of clothing that you would find in women's sections of a clothing stores, such as Section 3B1, 3A2, 3B2, and 4B of the dress code. I stand here today as a student because no student should have their education neglected. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Selena Westerberg, and I'm a senior at Lake Mary High School. I'm here today to share my experiences with Seminole County Public Schools' gender discriminatory dress code. Having attended school 5th through 7th grade in Denmark, I experienced learning environments without dress codes. Though there, buildings don't have AC and the school year extends until the end of June. This means that during the warmer months, students commonly attend class wearing tank tops, shorts, or dresses that would violate SCPS's dress code policy. No issues have arisen from this to date. Here in Florida, we constantly live in hot temperatures, including unbearable heat throughout April, May, and August. It is unacceptable that students within SCPS are unable to wear clothes such as tank tops to withstand the hot temperatures. Additionally, shorts must reach to at least mid-thigh, according to Section 4B of the dress code. This is not an issue for masculine students, as the shorts found in the men's department of clothing stores often meet this standard. However, the shorts in the women's section are rarely long enough to reach mid-thigh. This leaves most feminine students to wear jeans or pants throughout the school year. This is inequitable towards feminine students. While it is reasonable to have guidelines or rules set in place to avoid classroom disturbance, targeting one gender's dress should not be acceptable. The way a student dresses should be between themselves and their parent or parents. Next, I would like to point out that the county's dress code policy specifically targets feminine individuals in sections 3B1 and 3A2. Halter tops, tube tops, backless dresses or tops, spaghetti straps, crop tops, and tank tops are all predominantly worn by feminine individuals. This directly targets feminine students, as they must follow more restrictions on what they wear compared to their male peers. When found in violation of the dress code, we are pulled out of class, degraded, and punished. When one gender is missing more class time due to the dress code policy, this is clear discrimination and violation of equal rights. As a student who has attended Seminole County Public Schools for almost 7 years, I have witnessed and experienced this, and it can be humiliating. Additionally, it is extremely uncomfortable when, as a minor, an adult who is there to teach to or keep you safe is judging your body and whether or not the clothes you're wearing are appropriate. This is a situation in which the student's parent or guardian should have full responsibility and final say in deciding what the student wears meets the standards. This May, I will be graduating. I'm an honor grad, scholar, president of a club, National Honor Society member, and a student athlete. However, I will never forget the times I was in school and was embarrassed and punished for the shirt or shorts I was wearing. That is why I'm here to fight for better future policies for my peers. I ask that the school board remove sections 3B1, 3A2, 3B2, and 4B of the dress code in order to have an equitable environment in our public schools before the beginning of the next school year. Thank you for your time today.
Kira Frazine, followed by Faiza Jafar, followed by Haley Donahue.
Hello, my name is Kira Frazine, and I'm a senior at Lake Mary High School. Thank you for having us here today. Today, along with a number of other students from Seminole County Public Schools, I'm here to address our concerns over the gender discriminatory language used within the SCPS dress code, as well as share our experiences as students who face this type of discrimination on a regular basis. Earlier this year, I was told by a teacher that I must zip up my jacket because my shirt was revealing too much in the chest area. Meanwhile, in the same classroom, a smaller-chested girl was wearing the same shirt without a jacket, and she went the day without being dress coded. Section 3A of the dress code states, garments must be of a length and fit that are suitable to the build and stature of the student, end quote. With vague language, as seen in Section 3 of the dress code, teachers are given the power to not only make decisions on what is out of the dress code, but to sexualize and target young women, intentionally or not. Additionally, I have also witnessed young men wear shirts that reveal their shoulders without any repercussions. This is an experience disproportionate to that of female students, who would quickly be pulled into the office if they arrived to school in the same top. Whether intentional or not, the SCPS dress code targets feminine individuals. We should not fear that we will be harassed or sexualized when attending school each day. We should not suffer apprehension that our bodies will be deemed too distracting. Instead, we should be focused on one thing and one thing only, our education. There is truly nothing more important than a student's ability to learn in a safe and equitable environment. As a student, I am asking that the school board and district leaders take initiative to stop this injustice. Policies that prohibit items most likely to be worn by feminine students, such as sections 3B1, 3A2, 4B, and 4B, must be reformed. I stand here today because no student deserves to have their education tampered with because of dress code policies. Thank you for your time.
My name is Faiza Jaffer, and I'm a junior at Lake Mary High School. First and foremost, I would like to extend my gratitude to have the opportunity to provide public comment today. Today, I am speaking to advocate to reform the sections of 3B1, 3A2, 3B2, 4B, and 4C of the dress code. These sections are gender discriminatory when enforced, and this must change. To bring about this change, I will reiterate what is currently stated in Section 3B1 of the dress code. Quote, all garments must have a collar or sleeves. Therefore, the following items are prohibited: halter tops, tube tops, backless dresses / tops, spaghetti straps, and tank tops, end quote. Based on the criteria listed, it is more likely for those enforcing the dress code to target feminine individuals. With these specific feminine clothing items listed, school staff may have a greater bias towards feminine students. However, the issues that arise from this policy can simply be resolved by reforming Section 3B1 to exclude specific gender clothing items and instead prohibit clothing items that expose shoulders. This will create a more neutral dress code for all students. As a student, I've seen my male peers wear shirts that showed their shoulders and receive treatment disproportionate to that of feminine students when dress coded. I remember several occasions in which a male's peer's shoulders were exposed, and yet he did not get dress coded. However, if a girl wore a spaghetti strap tank top, it would be a violation of the dress code. This clearly shows the double standard and sexism of the current dress code. This is gender discrimination, and students will not stand for this. This particular experience has shown that the Seminole County dress code policy does specifically target feminine individuals. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, dress codes are legal as long as they do not treat boys and girls differently, force students to conform to sex stereotypes, or censor particular viewpoints. Members of the school board, it is time to implement change to the Seminole County dress code, which clearly does treat students differently based on their sex and leads to gender bias against feminine individuals and people of color. As a student, I request these changes because I do not want to see any more of my feminine peers degraded, sexualized, and pulled out of class for a policy that discriminates on the basis of their gender. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Haley Donahue, and I am a senior at Winter Springs High School. Let me begin with a quote from Kurt Vonnegut. I hate it that Americans are taught to fear some books and some ideas as though they were diseases. When you ban one book, you start a vicious cycle. One book gets banned, which leads to 2, which leads to 20, until the only books in the library are those that are deemed safe. Those are the comfortable books with wax moon faces. Those are the poreless, hairless, expressionless books that paint a perfect picture of picket fences and a mother and father in their sitcom glory that Ray Bradbury warned us about. I could go on for a while about the different books I've found that are on banned book lists from different hate groups. These books are mostly focused on LGBTQIA+ literature, or books about people of color, or books about women. I stand as a part of my generation to say that we want to read these books. They're not pornography, they're not racist, they're not sexist. They are books about what it is like to be someone who isn't a cis, straight, white, Christian man in American society. These books might be uncomfortable for those who identify as cis, straight, white, Christian Americans, but the books are meant to discuss an identity outside of the former one. America is supposed to be a melting pot. It's not supposed to be just one ideology. The quick and easy guide to queer and trans identities is not pornography. Books about Ruby Bridges, yeah, the Ruby Bridges books that most of us read in elementary school, and books about MLK are being branded as racist. And the idea that these books are CRT is preposterous. CRT is a theory with structured scaffolding and teaching. Having these books in a library or available for children to read or taught in class is not CRT. Another book being banned is Fahrenheit 451, a book taught to 8th and 9th graders in this district because apparently it disagrees with something and could be dangerous. Honestly, I find it hilarious that a book about the dangers of censorship is a target of book bannings and censorship. But all of this goes hand in hand with the need to recognize pride. There are people who are fine with their children reading about heterosexual couples, but as soon as Jack and Diane, or Jacqueline and Diane, then suddenly it becomes pornographic. Laws are getting passed which criminalize discussing the LGBTQ+ community. There are bills that would make it impossible for these LGBTQ+ kids to feel comfortable in their schools. These far-right hate groups are advocating against the LGBTQ+ community. So I ask as a member of my generation to take a stand against this and show kids that you care by recognizing June as Pride, and to keep book bannings away from Seminole County. Thank you so much, school board, for hearing me out.
Maurique Bartolodis, followed by Caden Bryant, followed by Valerie Wirtz.
Good evening. At last month's meeting, many students stood up and spoke against HB 1557, the quote, "Don't Say Gay" bill. This bill prevents talking of anything of a sexual nature in kindergarten to 3rd grade. There is no reason why small children need to be taught about such adult topics, and also no reason to talk about sexuality in school at all. As for the students who spoke, I asked the board, where has their education been? Do you not teach in social studies about civics? About doing your own research and not blindly regurgitating what someone else has said? Are there no more critical thinking and debate classes? Have we also stopped teaching about dress to impress? They should be focused, these students, on excelling in school to be able to survive in the adult world. As far as their accusations that LGBTQ+ people are victims of hate crimes and bullying on campus, my research has found no police reports or other complaints about such instances. After hearing their misguided talk, why does the board not recommend that these children and all their others in school volunteer at a VA hospital or meet with veterans of foreign wars? Because I assure you, and I speak from personal experience, that when you are under fire or fighting for your life, the last thing you care about is the race or sexual preference of the person who comes to your aid. These children should be taught not that they are victims, because they're not, but that most people do not care what choices a person makes about themselves. They just don't want it shoved down their throats. Schools should teach these children about actual history, about local heroes of all different races and beliefs who fought together against tyranny. Of course, when elements of CRT are taught in schools, like the 1619 Project and equity and ethnic studies, it doesn't surprise me that these students feel that there is some inherent racism and hatred towards certain marginalized groups. I understand we're sending the superintendent to a GSV summit in Arizona in April. Is the board aware of some of the major sponsors of this event? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Google, Chegg, among others. These groups are also partners in the World Economic Forum, which is working towards a type of democratic socialism, utilizing identity politics to break apart the very fabric of what holds us all together. It concerns me that we are sending representatives to this summit, which speaks of equity and divides people into who they identify as and what level of victimhood they possess. Is that what we want to learn from and aspire to? It teaches the exact opposite of what America stands for and the exact opposite of what our schools should teach our children. They hold their iPhones in their hands not because of the amount of blacks or Spanish or trans people that work at Apple, but that because Apple has the best people working for them and they're the best at what they do. And in this country, with hard work, anyone has this ability. Equity comes from the respect that is earned from working hard and excelling at your trade, that learning from our elders, volunteering in our community, be it at the VA, an animal shelter, or walking along the road and picking up garbage with their fellow students, teaches children that yelling about Black lives, LGBTQ, white lives, and lamenting about victims is not what makes our society stronger. It breaks it apart. Perhaps we should worry less about hiring assistant superintendents and more on purchasing learning materials that teach core American values: hard work, liberty, and the Bill of Rights. Thank you.
Aiden Bryant.
Hello, my name is Caden Bryant, and I'm a junior at Oviedo High School, and I'm going to be speaking about the Don't Say Gay bill. When I was in 8th grade, I started the Gay Straight Alliance Club at Jackson Heights Middle School. At the end of the year, I had dozens of students write me letters saying how much the club meant to them. I wrote some of them down to share with you all today. This is just a few pieces of what they said. Caden, I cannot thank you enough for making the GSA. My parents don't accept my identity at home, and I don't have any support except from the people in this club. Thank you so much for giving me a place to belong. Another student said, this is the first time in my life I've ever felt seen. I don't have anyone to talk to about my feelings, and all of you help me feel so accepted and loved. Another student, thank you for giving me a place to feel cared about when even my own family does not. The friends I've made in this club have shown me more support than I've seen from my own parents. If this hateful bill passes, it could erase the comfort we've brought to these students. It could erase the only support struggling queer kids have. It could erase all the progress we have made as a society. LGBTQ middle schoolers are at a huge risk. I may be graduating soon, but my family and all of these kids will grow up in a state that tells them they're not equal to the other students, that their identity is something to be kept a secret. Please don't allow these children to grow up thinking that something is wrong with them, because even if that's not the intent, that is the effect that will take place. Kids will realize that they're queer, try to talk about it, then be silenced, shamed, and outed by the people they trust the most. That is traumatizing to anyone, especially a young person. Queer people already have such little representation and such little of our history being taught. There are thousands of queer students who only have a teacher on their side, not their own mother or father, but their teacher. And now, if this bill passes, it's requiring that teacher to betray the student's trust. We cannot be brushed aside, swept under the rug, or silenced. We refuse to be treated like we're worth any less than the straight cisgender students. We have suffered enough. All this hateful bill is doing is spreading the message that queer people are less than other students. All we want is to be treated equally. On behalf of all queer people, if and when this bill passes, please implement it as little as possible. Help us instead of hurting us. Support us like you would any other student. Thank you.
Valerie Wirtz, followed by Charmin Kraft, followed by Joseph D'Alessandro.
I am Valerie Wirtz. I am a resident here in Seminole County and a mother of 3. So I want to go over the HB 1557 and some of the truths, since there's so much misinformation out there. This is the parent right in education. Here's the truth. Don't Say Gay bill That nickname is a perversion and outright lie of this bill. The current Parents' Bill of Rights provides that important information related to minor children should not be withheld from his or her parent while the minor child is in custody of the school district. But right now, we have 24 school districts in Florida that maintain policies that exclude parental rights from the discussion and decisions on sensitive topics related to their students. HB 1557 recognizes parents have the fundamental right to make decisions regarding the care and upbringing of his or her child. Our parental rights do not stop at the classroom door. HB 1557 requires school districts to adopt procedures for notifying parents if there is a change in their students' services or monitoring related to their students' mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being. HB 1557 requires school districts personnel must encourage students to discuss issues related to his or her well-being with his or her parent. HB 1557 prohibits school districts withholding information or encouraging students to withhold information related to a student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being from their parents. HB 1557 prohibits school districts from encouraging discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity in primary grades K through 3rd, typically minors 5 to 9 years old, and restricts discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity to only those that are age appropriate and developmentally appropriate for students. I have with me tonight a few samples of letters and emails that our principals sent out after the demonstration that took place in our district this last week. These are verbatim, the same exact email from 2 different schools. It is clear to me that this was a complete propaganda phrase, calling it the Don't Say Gay bill. I believe that the burden of diffusing false narratives to the district staff falls to the district leaders. The ignorance that was shown in this situation is not only frustrating, but it furthers the proof of the need for leadership before one is appointed to a position. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charmin Kraft, and I am a parent of a 9th grader at Lyman High School. I would just like to voice my dissatisfaction over how SCPS handled the student-led walkout that happened on most campuses last Thursday. Although HB 1557 was passed, I'm unhappy with how the county handled many of the aspects of this protest. First of all, the county sent out a statement after the protest occurred, and the same generic statement was sent to every single parent countywide. It said, today some of our students participated in a peaceful protest to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill legislation. These were student-led or organized walkouts not endorsed by our school or the district and held primarily during the lunch hour, primarily. Our primary concern was that the campus remained safe and orderly throughout the event. Obviously, I got this from our principal at Lyman. And the same letter went to all the other parents, at different schools. Well, I can tell you this wasn't entirely true, this statement. I'm a volunteer at Lyman, and I was there most of the day Thursday, and I got to witness this protest firsthand. And what I saw was pretty disheartening. Students were calling each other the F word, not the 4-letter one, the other one. Bigot, homophobe, other things I can't say up here. And basically there was name calling happening from both sides, if you will, sides, meaning the ones protesting and the ones not. This was extremely divisive, and I believe it put some students in harm's way. I don't think this protest has a place on school campus. These children are minors, remember, standing up for an alternative lifestyle, not just a gender preference. And I'm disappointed in SCPS for allowing it during school hours. And yes, even promoting it, some of the teachers were. My teacher's son told him that she would be proud of any one of her students that joined the protest and walked out. Did you know that? I know I'm not supposed to talk to you guys, sorry. And this was during instruction time. He was in class. And this isn't our students' decision to make. They are minors. They're parents. We get to decide if they walk out of class and when. Many other teachers were promoting it as well, and I just think it's unacceptable. At the very least, parents should have been notified prior to this protest happening and given the opportunity to allow or not allow their children to participate. Most of the kids had no idea really what they were protesting, and many of them may not have even read the bill. They heard a buzzword and they built an event around it, and it was a clown show. It distracted from valuable learning time, and the campus was not safe, as stated in the letter. People were throwing their juice boxes or milk containers or whatever at each other, and at least one fight that I saw broke out. In the future, please do not inform us as parents after the fact about a demonstration that you know about ahead of time. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm a civics teacher, by the way. Before I get into my speech, though, I'll just say that regardless of what people say, I don't have any of these students here that I've had the privilege of teaching, but I respect their free speech and their initiative to speak for what they want in their community. So I think that's brave. And thank you for the parents who do speak on behalf of teachers. So I will start by reiterating that I've been teaching for 12 years, and I love what I do. I put my heart, soul, sweat, and tears into being the best possible teacher I can be for my students and their families. I've spoken before about the crisis we face with our teacher shortages, as we still have nearly 5,000 vacancies that have not been filled throughout the state. We have many unlicensed, uncertified, and grossly underqualified substitutes filling these roles, or we have unprepared teachers from other classrooms fill in. We can't hire great candidates because we don't have any to choose from. Do we want high quality education for our students or babysitting? We must focus on actual policy and real legislation to fix this issue. Last month I spoke about Senate Bill 298 and House Bill 587 that would return power to county school boards to compensate teachers and address our shortage without the over 20 ridiculous rules from the state that hinder that. However, those bills, unfortunately, as expected, never even made it out of committee. I'm greatly concerned with the lack of engagement in our community members about actual policy. Education should always be a nonpartisan issue. I have teachers at my own school who think that teacher unions are terrible because they assume these unions fund candidates who want to support liberal brainwashing of their children in schools. But let me be very clear, in any profession there are bad apples, as you heard from the last speaker. If any teacher is teaching in a biased way, then communicate with your school's principal. If they don't address it, speak to your school board. But again, let me be very clear, this was never okay or backed up by any legislation. Teaching in a biased way was against state and county policy long before the legislature redundantly banned critical race theory or is passing a parent choice bill. These wars about ideas instead of policy are all just a distraction from the real issues and are meant to confuse community members and teachers. These culture wars are creating issues that don't exist on a large scale or at an institutional level, but are instead isolated incidents. The Florida Educators Association has never supported the idea that teachers should be biased and brainwash kids with their opinions. 30% of the union's members are registered Republicans, 45% are Democrats, 25% are independents. I have received more emails, letters, and phone calls of praise from students and their guardians over the years than I can count, and I'm grateful for them. However, I must pose this question. How many of those families ever once picked up a phone, wrote an email, or showed up at an office to speak to their state house or state senate member in the legislature? We have to get better at getting our community members to advocate for our children in our schools by advocating for our teachers. So a few more sentences, so that's okay. Yeah. The whole community is impacted by our public school system, regardless if you have kids in it or not. In the past, I've spoken to individuals in my community who tell me they support teachers. In turn, I have politely suggested that they contact their representatives to voice support, but I'm almost always met with contempt and anger instead of support. I've spoken to dozens of individuals who will spend more time explaining to me why it's not their responsibility to contact their representatives to support education. They instead tell me that teachers need to organize and strike, which is against the law in this state, And if you think I'm exaggerating, take a moment to think about how many speakers at a school board meeting actually speak on behalf of teachers. But I am grateful for those that have tonight. Thank you.
Shiloh Charles, followed by Nina Sandberg, followed by Joy Stricker.
Hi, I'm Shiloh Charles of Winter Springs. I have 3 children in SCPS schools. I love that our youth is getting up here and speaking. It takes a lot of bravery for them. I just want to touch on the dress code really quickly because I think I have an easy solution for this. If they feel like they're being discriminated against, it is up to every principal of our schools that they can implement uniforms. And then we can just go back to collared shirts and khaki shorts. No one has to worry about it, and everyone will look nice for school. So what I'm really excited to talk about is that I went to this training this morning. It's the Reading Accelerated Program. So it costs $22,000 per teacher for this training. I went to it for free. It was like 2 hours today. Let me see, it was Kelly Berman. She's the RIP program educator. So she is a contract employee with SCPS. She's been around since 2014. Her services were deemed essential during COVID under our previous superintendent so that the volunteers were still allowed to go on campus and do the reading tutoring with our first grade students. She is in 32 out of the 39 elementary schools, if I have that right. And this is for our first and second graders, where instead of hiring a bunch of people or training teachers for $22,000, a volunteer like me can take this training, and then I can go pick up like however many kids I want, 1 to 4, and I can go to the school and spend 30 minutes where I'm trained and I have a whole protocol that I follow to teach these kids how to read, who have been severely impacted from COVID, and they're behind for years. I mean, our second graders this year have never seen a normal school year. In 2020, our second graders are now our 5th graders. And there is such a delay in reading that I would just love to see her hired on as a full-time employee of SCPS so that she doesn't run out of funding right now where we have to stop the program for the end of the school year, because this is a fundamental building block, is reading. It's the most important step to all of our education. She has over 150 volunteers that sign up to do this every year, so that's a lot of volunteers that can make a lot of impact with our first and second grade elementary students. I did want to touch on the teacher trainings that we have, where we take them from school when we have such a shortage of teachers that perhaps we could stop the early release on Wednesdays and go back to a teacher work day on a Friday or a Monday where they can do the training, so we're not down like 10 teachers out of school at a time for training. I don't think it's safe right now. We don't have enough adults on campus. So I'll wrap it up with that. I'm excited to see that you guys are gonna get textbooks. I'm excited to hear where the money's coming from, because last meeting we heard that we didn't have state funding since 2001. So I'm really excited to see that we did get it, and I'd love to know where it's coming from. But all right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nina Sandberg. Why do you have hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on extra district bureaucrats that never even existed before, even though thousands of SCPS parents pulled their kids out of your failing schools in disgust, and enrollment in SCPS is down and not up? You did not have the money to spend on textbooks for the academic subjects. My kids have no math or science textbooks. And you don't have the money for teachers to make copies of worksheets, study guides, and other teaching materials either. Teachers who sponsor clubs or who do after-school tutoring often have to do it for free without stipends. You don't even have soap and paper towels in the restrooms. You do not have enough teachers, aides, substitute teachers, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, or janitors. Many employees don't even make as much money as the employees at McDonald's. You don't have enough tutoring or summer school, but you have the money to waste on bloating the district offices with more bureaucrats and apparently sending the superintendent on some expensive trip during the summer. How? You've been herding students into gymnasiums and cafeterias to do nothing for hours while you don't even have enough warm bodies to supervise, let alone teach the kids. Some SCPS kids go without a proper teacher in one or more subjects for weeks at a time. Fights break out daily at your schools while you don't even have adequate adult supervision. You don't stock the potato chips or cook enough entrees. You don't buy enough tables and chairs for everyone to sit down and eat. You don't buy enough balls for everyone to play at PE. You are not even getting the basics done at the physical schools themselves, but somehow you can afford more district bureaucrats with less students and a fancy trip for our superintendent. A full investigation needs to be done into how you are spending our tax dollars. Why do you have money to bloat the district offices with needless bureaucrats who don't even have, when you don't even have textbooks, soap, and paper towels at the physical schools? You play politics and mutual admiration society games while our schools disintegrate and you ignore their problems. Spend the money at the schools themselves and not at the district offices. Give the schools the staff, materials, and supplies they need so that they can get the basics done. Why is the board not spending the money at the schools themselves? The schools need for you to spend the money at the schools and give them the basics that they need to do their jobs. By the way, there was fighting and name-calling at OHS during the protests that last week also. It was not safe there either.
Joy Stricker, followed by Samuel Adams, followed by Michelle Manella.
My name is Joy Stricker. I live in Longwood. At the last meeting, one student after another spoke about the importance of pride recognition on campus so that they would not be bullied. Unfortunately, bullying in high school has always been a thing. Luckily, we already have anti-bullying policies in place. They just need to be enforced. How did we, as a community, get here with high school students revealing their sexual preferences in a videotaped open forum in a misguided attempt to demand respect from their peers? Well, the first thing that happened was that an adult board member made a motion for SCPS to formally recognize Pride Month. The second thing that happened was that the Rainbow SEMDEM sent in an adult contingency to support this motion. Ultimately, the motion was withdrawn prior to a vote. Now that Pride has once again become an issue up for debate, I will tell you again why I do not want Pride Month recognized in SCPS. First of all, what does Pride Month celebrate? Pride Month is an observance of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender history. A lesbian usually refers to a woman who has a romantic and/or sexual orientation towards women. A gay person is characterized by sexual or romantic attraction to people of one same sex, often used to refer to men only. A bisexual person is sexually attracted not exclusively to people of one particular gender, attracted to both men and women. A transgender person is one whose sense of personal identity and gender does not correspond with their birth sex. In a nutshell, Pride Month celebrates sexual preferences outside of the biblical norm of a man and a woman within the confines of marriage. How did we as a nation come to this point in time where school board members and teachers want to recognize any sexuality as it applies to minors? I am not a Christian conservative. I fully support the legality of same-sex marriage. I've had gay friends in the past. I might even have gay friends now, but don't know it because a person's sexual preference is none of my business. And to be quite honest, I couldn't care less. As it relates to underage students in SCPS, this school board and superintendent need to find a way to encourage our children to recognize that their worth as a person is not measured by a body part which is located between their legs. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Samuel Adams. I am a citizen of Seminole County and a product of a Seminole County School Board. In my lifetime, I have had a chance to go into the schools and speak to the students in the job fields that I have worked in, and mostly in the entertainment field, but now I am retired and I work as a new elect pastor in the city. I just want to come with words of encouragement and thank yous. I thank you all for what you're doing, what you're proceeding to do, and I do know wherever you have opportunity to uphold yourself in a position, there will be opposition. But the thing is, how will you be resilient in the moment of opposition? That is the thing. I encourage you and I thank you for what you're doing. I look back a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, when Superintendent Beeman was on the news and there was an incident at the school. And the main thing I thought about was, she didn't run, she didn't hide. I look at the people that stand for what their positions hold. When I was a kid in school, I didn't even know who the superintendent was. But on that day, as I looked at the news, she let the world know who she was. There are a lot of people saying who should have this job and who shouldn't do this and who shouldn't do that. Well, I'm here to say, as a phrase of pursuit and happiness and equality, that we all should be given the opportunity, if we have the job skills and the credentials to do what we're doing. So if she's sitting in the seat, she must have the credentials. So I thank you for what you're doing, all of you, and I hope that you all stay steadfast, unmovable, always working in the ways that you are doing for this community. Thank you.
Michelle Manella, Longwood. There's an abundance of misunderstanding regarding Florida's Parental Rights in Education bill that was passed today by the Florida legislature. The truth is that some districts saw fit to lock parents out of the decision-making process when it comes to their children's major life decisions. Moms and dads, not teachers and administrators, know their children best. HB 1557 simply provides much-needed transparency and puts parents back at the helm of their kids' education. Contrary to media hype, this bill does not ban the word gay from the classroom. Rather, it protects K through third graders from teachers and other staff who seek to sexualize children at very young ages by pushing planned instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity issues in K through third, or in contexts that are not age appropriate in later grades. The bill does not prohibit organic conversations between students and teachers or age-appropriate discussion of social issues, including sexual orientation. It does not force teachers to out students who have private discussions with teachers. The bill does reinforce the fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding the upbringing and control of their minor children, and affirms that school districts may not adopt procedures that prohibit parents from accessing any of their students' education or health records. This would address situations like the one that occurred in Tallahassee last year, when school officials directed a young student to pursue a gender transition, knowingly concealed their actions from her parents, and even discussed restroom preferences and name changes without her parents' consent or knowledge. Florida parents have the right to be aware of and involved in crucial decisions regarding their children. Parents have the responsibility to ensure their children's well-being. They do not lose their rights or responsibilities when they enroll their children in public school. Public schools do not have the right to teach inappropriate sexual content to children as young as 5. While the media and other groups have spread misinformation surrounding this bill, it is merely a common sense measure empowering parents to be informed regarding their students' well-being. I find it extremely concerning that students were allowed to abandon their classrooms in protest last week with few consequences. In many cases, it appears that teachers and administrators supported this action. These not-so-peaceful protests violate SCPS Code of Conduct, and I believe if this protest had been about mask mandates, that the administrative response would have been entirely different, with actual consequences to students who violated the Code of Conduct. It is entirely improper for SCPS to be selectively enforcing the Code of Conduct in this manner. I urge you to ensure there is a consistent enforcement of policy across the board, and that you return to your true mission, academic instruction, not indoctrination. Thank you.
Katrina Shaddix, followed by Jessica Tillman, followed by Trinetta McClinton.
Katrina Shaddix, Executive Director of Bear Warriors United. Since I am representing a nonprofit organization, do I get 6 minutes?
You have 3 minutes because it's not an agenda item.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So here today, I sent y'all all an email earlier with this picture. And just to let you know, I am a product of Seminole County Schools, as is my son. He graduated from Oviedo High School. And my mother and aunts and uncles went to the Oviedo High School when it was K through 12 and the T.W. Lawton building. So we've been here since 1940s. And happy to have volunteered so many hours while my son was in elementary school with remedial reading, math superstar, super scientist. And so I'm invested heart and soul with the children and the wildlife of this county. And something very disturbing happened, and I contacted y'all a couple years ago about this, and I'm just now, being able to follow up on this. But at Sterling Park Elementary, the landscaping company sprayed Roundup, which is a deadly herbicide. It's known to be a carcinogen. And they sprayed it specifically on a gopher tortoise burrow. And this gopher tortoise was named Sterling. The kids had adopted this gopher tortoise. The staff had roped off his burrow, which is in that picture. And the Brightview Landscaping Company that's contracted through Seminole County Schools, the worker sprayed that burrow and killed the gopher tortoise. I did try to initiate an investigation and have his body necropsied. That wasn't done. And I did speak to the employee of Brightview, and he showed me the chemical that he used, which is that big bottle of Roundup. And he did show me where he sprayed the gopher tortoise burrow. So I'm asking the county to ban the use of this deadly product on all school property, because not only did it kill this gopher tortoise, this is being sprayed right by the doors of where our kids are going into their classrooms. If they drop a pencil and pick it up, you know what kids do? They put it in their mouth. They're putting this toxic chemical that has killed millions of people and countless wildlife, they're putting that into their mouths. And if you just ban this one chemical off school property, our kids will be safer, our wildlife will be safer, and a lot of us parents will have more peace of mind when our kids go to school every day. And I have a lot of information. If y'all want me to email it to you, just let me know what you require to get this done. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Tillman. I am a Longwood resident. And I just want to point out that your policy 0169.1, public participation in board meetings, the guidelines regarding the amount of time an individual has to address the board, each statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes in duration. A designated group representative will have a maximum of 6 minutes. That's it. That's all that required. It doesn't have to be an agenda item. I was in the discussions when you guys were discussing this policy. This was never brought up. It does not say that in your own policy. In regards to HB 1557, the protest that occurred on campuses across the district on Thursday is really scary. It was not all at lunchtime, so it was disruptive to children learning. The district, there was violent. I've seen videos. I've heard the kids yelling at each other. It was not safe. It was not safe. And where were our district leaders at the time that this was all happening? The schools were informed beforehand. Why weren't parents informed that this was happening? This district needs to stop ignoring the corruption and the people that are not being protected. The children are not being educated. We don't have learning materials. So why are we sending our kids to school to sit in a cafeteria all day or be discriminated against? Because in these policies, we do have non-discrimination policies. We do have non-harassment policies that include all students, including LGBTQ. I was excited and very pleased to see the LGBTQ students were included in these policies. We have discipline policies in place. These policies are not being followed. They're not being implemented. Student resource officers are telling parents that their hands are tied. They can't do this because they're afraid that the district's discipline numbers will go too high, and that will look bad on the district. Well, what does this say to us that our students are not being educated and they're not being represented. We need to fix this, and we need to stop pretending that everything is rainbows and unicorns, because it's not. Fix this and get back to educating our students. Stop discriminating against any student, no matter their race, no matter their gender. Every student needs to be supported, whatever that means. In the GSA, if those students need that club, let them have that club. But we don't need to have mockery of every student going on. We don't need kids running all over campuses. We don't need that. We need discipline, and we need education, and we need it now.
Good evening, Superintendent, members, and the community. Just as a side note, Superintendent Beeman, if you're taking an expensive trip, I hope that you have a great time, because I'm sure that all the other superintendents have done it before. It's just never been questioned.
Order, please.
I stand before you continuing to ask that the school board get back to the business of providing an education, a high-quality education in a diverse, safe, and caring environment for all students. Therefore, I ask the school board to focus on hiring and paying good teachers who will provide a high-quality, equitable, and inclusive education for all students. Our children need a curriculum that is evidence-based and a true portrayal of history and science, remembering that true history cannot be taught without teaching Black history. Book banning is not creating an educational environment conducive to all children and all backgrounds. I don't care how much people come and pray at the microphone or say we're here for all students. Giving all students a fair education means including all students in a curriculum at the schools. We also need to continue to lobby for better public education, more funding, and that should be done together as community of Seminole County. Lastly, please, 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 let's keep Seminole County School Board nonpartisan. Thank you.
Okay, Superintendent, do you have a recommendation on the consent agenda?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. That the consent agenda be approved as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any discussion? Any opposition, say aye.
Aye.
I meant, sorry.
You,
No, I don't oppose it,
okay,
sorry.
thank you.
was
Okay. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation on discipline?
Yes, that the School Board of Seminole County approve the student disciplinary recommendations for February 14, 2022, and February 22, 22.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion carries. Superintendent, do you have a report?
Chairman, my report is read-only and is included in the agenda book.
Okay, and we are at board member updates. Member Calderon?
As far as the committee I represent this board on, last night we met with the insurance committee, and Cigna reported their annual usage this year, and we will be having them make that exact same presentation to us as a board in a future board meeting. But I think we'll have some hearty discussions this year. Also some updates on wellness and getting ready for the Sarita Stroll 5K for our staff members, and that information will be rolling out. But we're very focused on hoping to keep all of our employees well and fit, and those discussions will be had with all 5 of us in public forum. I also wanted to say thank you to our Seminole Association of School Administrators for inviting us all to their annual meeting with our keynote that refocused us on education and making sure that all children matter, and it was great to participate in that. I wanted to say congratulations to all of our History Fair participants and winners and teachers and judges. It was exciting to see how exciting our students can get and the presentations, how creative they were in all of that. I wanted to give a shout out to Millennium Middle School for their play Legally Blonde. If anybody went to that, you would have thought they were college-age students. It was so professionally done, and very, very proud of all of their teachers and the students. I wanted to say thank you to Orlando Health for their $50,000 donation to our Seminole Health Academy. That will help our students have more relevant experiences so they can go right into the workforce as soon as they graduate from our school districts. So I'm very proud of our teachers, our students, and thank you to our entire community that is so supportive of our students. And as an aside, I wanted to just let you know, I know we congratulated all of our science fair winners the other night, but one student in particular that I had interviewed during the science fair, he did a science fair on school bus transportation and suggestions he had. So I thought it would be creative to contact our transportation department. And I just have to give a shout out to Julie and her entire team. We actually brought the student over with his father, and the transportation department, as hardworking as they are and the long hours that they do, they welcomed him with open arms, made him feel like a rock star, gave suggestions for the project, and they listened to all of his suggestions, and they said that he was light years ahead of other school districts in the state who are just now implementing some of his ideas about depots that we've been doing here in Seminole for quite a few years. And I just have to thank our transportation family over there. They had posters made on the wall congratulating him on his work. It was like family when you walked in there, that they were just so honored that a student would care enough about transportation, because sometimes they feel like they're not totally connected, but it just really showed you that we are connected no matter what department. We're not in silos. We work together, all focused on what's right for students. So I just wanted to say thank you to that entire transportation team. And that's my report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Sanchez.
I had an opportunity to go to facilities again today, and Seminole County Tax Collector J.R. Kroll joined me along with Alan Bird, and we dropped off, they donated some more plexiglass in case we ever need it again, but we can also utilize it for so many other things, like our, I'm like, let's take it because we can use it as smart boards, and I was doing little center work with it and all these different activities that we can make little activities with it. So they dropped it off, and they had redid all their offices. So we appreciate their donation, and we definitely are going to utilize it in some form. And while I was there, Kim Dove and Chad, I know you weren't there, but I just want to give a shout out to you as well, and to the wonderful faculty at our facility there. It's just amazing. And they opened their doors and showed everybody around, and just, stopped everything that they were doing just to make sure everybody knew what was going on, and I just loved it. I also got a chance to see the new physics bus, our electricity and magnetism bus, and our cabinets came in for it. So it's almost done, and some new vehicles that happened to recently be purchased. Of course, I would love to see us get some other things that, we'll see we can eventually get and prioritize. Also had an opportunity to read at Winter Springs Elementary for Read Across America for Dr. Seuss Day last week, and that was fabulous. I also did the news for them, and just making sure that everybody reads over the spring break, and stop, drop, read with your children or for yourself or whatever you want to do. And had an opportunity to go to Lake Mary Heathrow Art Festival. The artwork that was displayed from so many of our schools was fabulous, and loved seeing that. Allie's Hope, we have our golf tournament for mental health that's coming up and after spring break. Winter Springs High School, we had an opportunity to go to the program of emphasis for our Public Service Academy, and got to see the Weather STEM Research Lab launch, and that was awesome. So take an opportunity to check out the website, the Twitter account. Just go to Winter Springs High School Weather Launch or Public Service Academy and check out the wonderful emergency management programs that we have offered. Health Academy, Seminole County Academy was honored with, from Orlando Health, $50,000 for the Health Academy. That was a couple weeks ago or a week and a half ago. And Orlando Health, thank you so much for the donation and helping our program blossom. And had the chance to do opening day for Eastmont, 1,000 students right now, which is a lot of children in the softball and baseball at Eastmont. And Central Florida Zoo, we have a meeting tomorrow. And don't forget to head over there for spring break and get some rest, relax, refocus, regenerate, whatever you need to do. Remember to find somebody for a safe place and to chat and connect. It's so important for all of us to make sure we have somebody that we can communicate with and emotional, mental support for all of us. Thank you, and enjoy your break as well.
Member Kraus.
Thank you. Abby didn't leave too much for us, but I'd like to start with happy birthday to Jill from all of us. We adore you, and happy anniversary, Mr. and Mrs. Almond. Enjoy your day, your evening at the board meeting. I attended the Business Advisory Board meeting wherein our illustrious school board attorney presented information on the Sunshine Law. We have a lot of new members on the Business Advisory Board, and so we welcomed your update and appreciate that. Participated in voter registration at Lake Howell High School. They'd really like to have grilled cheese and tomato soup served. I don't know, is Jamie here? They'd like to add that back onto the menu if you would, please. Attended virtually the All Together Now conference, no charge to the district. All of us went to the Winter Spring softball field naming for Mr. Human, a beloved English teacher and coach, and that was very touching. We all attended the prayer breakfast for Seminole County and also the state of the county, which we got updates from all of the good things that is happening in our county right now. I presented the Eastbrook Arts Alive check, and they were just so excited to get that. And also the history awards that we all participated in. And I think that's it for my reports. I have a lot of other things to think about, but thank you, that's it.
Thank you. I marked off everything that's already been said. Foundation board met, and I always just share with them the things that are going on district-wide, events that we've gone to, competitions and winners and things like that. Had a meeting with Florida United Way, Heart of Florida United Way, and they want to be more supportive of Seminole County, which is awesome in the areas of financing some of the initiatives that we have, and also with volunteer time and presence. Castleberry Chamber did a What's Up Castleberry, the podcast that Andy and Drew do on a weekly basis. They talked about communication and connection with the community, and they just want to be better together for everyone. South Seminole Middle School had a practice day for the kids going to the Ron Clark Leadership Academy, and congratulations to Lucas, the first runner-up from South Seminole Academy. And then I was approached by Boys Town and wanted to meet with Miss Beeman, so we met today with them. They have a new initiative called Lift Together, and it's for better outcomes for students, a very holistic approach, and social emotional learning. and it was a very good meeting, and we'll see what happens. They're going to share some MOUs with us. So that is my report.
And I've marked off as well. I just want to say a quick congratulations to the drug-free contest winner through the Sheriff's Department. They get to have their artwork displayed on a patrol car, which is pretty cool and exciting. I have had an audit committee meeting, and we received an audit review, which is going to be presented at an upcoming work session by the auditors. And I am sitting on an RFP, and just wanted to give you a heads up that our internal accounts system is going cloud-based, and it doesn't serve the functions that we need. So we are in an RFP process right now to find a new vendor to do that. There may be some changes that affect more than just how the internal accounts are managed. It may affect my school bucks and all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're hoping to not have as much of an impact, but because the current program is going cloud-based, it just doesn't work for us how it is currently. So I don't have any others, so this meeting is adjourned. And happy birthday, Joe.